Good evening. This right here is the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And just 2 days ago, a former U.S. congressman from Philadelphia, he pled guilty to stuffing ballot boxes for Democratic Party candidates. Specifically, according to federal prosecutors at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, they put out this notice right here saying that former Democratic U.S. Congressman Michael J. Myers, he pled guilty to, quote, conspiracy to deprive voters of civil rights, bribery, obstruction of justice, falsification of voting records, and conspiring to illegally vote in a federal election for orchestrating schemes to fraudulently stuff the ballot boxes for specific Democratic candidates in the 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 Pennsylvania elections. And the only reason that 2020 is not on this list is because his accomplices actually were caught prior to the 2020 election and pled guilty. Regardless, in terms of how this election fraud scheme that Congressman Myers was enacting actually took place, well, the statement from the federal prosecutors actually broke it down quite well, point by point. So let's go through it together. And to start with, you should know that the city of Philadelphia is broken up into what are known as different wards. You can see a map up on screen for yourself. And so as you can see, Philadelphia is divided into 66 different wards, each of which is then further divided into somewhere between 11 to 51 different divisions. And each of these divisions have their own polling place. And then each of those wards, they have a party ward leader, both Democrats and Republicans, which are elected by each party's committee. And what appears to have taken place is that Mr. Michael J. Myers, being a federal congressman and therefore possessing a fair bit of clout as well as power within the local Democratic Party, he used this position to stuff the ballot box for candidates that were paying him money as a quote-unquote political consultant. Here's specifically how the federal prosecutors describe what took place within the 39th ward. Quote, former Congressman Myers enacted a scheme to bribe people to smash that like button below this video, as well as to subscribe to the Facts Matter YouTube channel. Now, I am, of course, just kidding about that. We do not have any such bribery schemes in place. And instead, I rely on viewers like you to smash that like button, as well as to subscribe to this channel in order to get this type of honest news content delivered to your YouTube feed every single weekday. Regardless, though, here's what the federal prosecutors actually wrote in regards to what took place. Quote, Congressman Myers admitted in court to bribing the judge of elections for the 39th Ward, 36th Division in South Philadelphia, Judge Dominic J. DeMuro, in a fraudulent scheme over several years. Judge DeMuro, who was charged separately and pleaded guilty in May of 2020, was responsible for overseeing the entire election process and all voter activities of his division in accord with federal and state election laws. And so, as you can see, Congressman Myers was able to bribe the very man who oversaw the entire election process in that particular area. And part of what this judge actually oversaw related to the voting machines at each polling station. Here's how the federal prosecutors continued. Quote, the voting machines at each polling station, including in the 39th Ward, 36th Division, generate records in the form of a printed receipt documenting the use of each voting machine. This printed receipt, also known as the results receipt, shows the vote totals, and the judge of elections and other election board officials at each polling place attest to the accuracy of machine results. Okay, so that broke it down fairly well, and now we understand that Judge DeMuro, who is, for your reference, a Democrat, he oversaw all of the election-related matters in his area, including attesting to the accuracy of the printed receipts which were coming out of the different voting machines. However, he was bribed by Congressman Myers, and here it was specifically what he was paid to do. Quote, Myers admitted to bribing Judge DeMuro to illegally add votes for certain candidates of their mutual political party in primary elections. Some of these candidates were individuals running for judicial office whose campaigns had hired Myers, and others were candidates for various federal, state, and local elective offices that Myers favored for a variety of reasons. Myers would solicit payments from his clients in the form of cash or checks as consulting fees, and then use portions of these funds to pay DeMuro and others to tamper with election results. And so, as you can see, Congressman Myers was acting in the capacity of an election consultant to his clients, who then paid him money, part of which Mr. Myers actually used as a bribe to quite literally inject votes for his clients. That's, I guess, what you call a full comprehensive service. However, what's even more surprising than that is that to sway an election didn't even take that much cash. Here's how the federal prosecutors continued. Quote, after receiving payments ranging from between $300 to $5,000 per election from Myers, Judge DeMuro would add fraudulent votes on the voting machine, also known as ringing up votes, for Myers' clients and preferred candidates, thereby diluting the value of ballots cast by actual voters. At Myers' direction, Judge DeMuro would add these fraudulent votes to the totals during Election Day and then would later falsely certify that the voting machine results were accurate. Myers is also accused of directing Judge DeMuro to lie to investigators about the circumstances of the bribes and the ballot stuffing scheme. Now, one thing that really clicked, at least for me when I was reading through these particular charges, was the fact that the term ballot stuffing is a bit of an antiquated term. Typically, when someone hears the words ballot stuffing, they think of someone wearing a trench coat filled with ballots, going over there and stuffing them into a box. Now, of course, I mean, that technique is still alive and well, especially if you've seen the film 2,000 Mules and all the associated surveillance footage that was presented in that film, well, then you know that that technique is still alive and well. However, in this case, what is being described as ballot stuffing appears to just be a local judge ringing up votes on a machine. Very cool. Regardless, Congressman Myers' activities were not limited to only that one locality, and they were not limited to only that one judge. Because the prosecutors, they then go on to, in this release, describe what took place in another division of South Philadelphia. Quote, Myers also admitted to conspiring to commit election fraud with a former judge of elections for the 39th Ward, 2nd Division in South Philadelphia, Judge Marie Beren. Beren, who was charged separately and pleaded guilty in October of 2021, was the de facto judge of elections and effectively ran the polling places in her division by installing close associates to serve as members of the Board of Elections. Myers admitted that he gave Judge Beren directions to add votes to candidates supported by him, including candidates for judicial office whose campaigns actually hired Myers, and other candidates for various federal, state, and local elective offices preferred by Myers for a variety of reasons. And so, as you can see, a very similar situation is playing out in this division as well. However, with Judge Beren, it went beyond just submitting fraudulent votes, because she was also trying to convince real voters to change their votes for the candidates that Mr. Myers preferred. Here's how the prosecutors described this part. Quote, Myers acknowledged in court that on almost every election day, Myers transported Judge Beren to the polling station to open the polls. During the drive to the polling station, Myers would advise Judge Beren which candidates he was supporting so that Beren knew which candidate should be receiving fraudulent votes. Inside the polling place, and while the polls were open, Judge Beren would advise actual in-person voters to support Myers' candidates and also cast fraudulent votes in support of Myers' preferred candidates on behalf of voters she knew would not or did not physically appear at the polls. And so you see what was happening here. Sorry, do you hear the sound of duct tape?
Oh, hello there, time traveler.
And welcome to the year 2023. As we call it here, month number 5 of the global food crisis. And I gotta tell you, I am on my last WHO-issued bug sandwich. And the only regret that I can really share with you is that I did not prepare for all this sooner. So don't do what I did. Prepare today by heading over to preparewithroman.com and purchasing my Patriot Supply's 3-month emergency food kit. And because your viewer facts matter, you can save $150 off of each food kit that you buy. Meaning that when the global food shortage comes to you and your neighbors are forced to eat bug sandwiches, you will instead be eating my Patriot Supply's emergency food kits, which are filled with delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners, drinks, as well as snacks that can keep you full and satiated for 3 full months. Now, My Patriot Supply is America's largest preparedness company, having served quite literally millions of customers across the entire country. And best of all, like I mentioned earlier, if you head on over to preparewithroman.com, you can save $150 off of each 3-month food kit that you purchase. That way you can buy one for each of your family members and save $150 on each one. And best of all, they are shipped quickly and discreetly to your doorstep in unmarked packages, so your nosy neighbors don't even have to know that you are prepping. Again, head on over to preparewithroman.com and prepare today for whatever might come tomorrow. And so you see, based on her position as the woman in charge of facilitating the election, she not only could try and convince the voters who actually came who to vote for, but she was also aware of the people who were registered to vote but didn't show up. And she would then cast ballots on behalf of those people. Furthermore, it appeared that while all this was taking place, she would actually be reporting back to Congressman Myers all of the developments in real time. Here's specifically what the prosecutors wrote. Quote, during Election Day itself, Myers conferred with Beren via cell phone while she was at the polling station about the number of votes cast for his preferred candidates. Judge Beren would report to Myers how many legit votes, meaning actual voters, had appeared at the polls and cast ballots. If actual voter turnout was high, Judge Beren would add fewer fraudulent votes in support of Myers' preferred candidates. From time to time, Myers would instruct Judge Beren to shift her efforts from one of his preferred candidates to another. Specifically, Myers would instruct Judge Beren to throw support behind another candidate during Election Day if he concluded that his first choice was comfortably ahead. And then, when all was said and done, the judge would falsify the polling books, give her stamp of approval, and then falsely certify the election results. Here's how this statement ends. Quote, Beren and her accomplices from the Board of Elections would then falsify the polling books and the list of voters and the party enrollment for the 39th Ward, 2nd Division by recording the names, party affiliation, and order of appearances for voters who had not physically appeared at the polling station to cast his or her ballot in the election. Judge Beren took pains to ensure that the number of ballots cast on the machines was a reflection reflection of the number of voters signed into the polling books and the list of voters. After the polls closed on Election Day, Judge Buren and her associates would falsely certify the results. And so I guess what this means is that if you happen to be a candidate running for office within the city of Pennsylvania, well, you now know who to call for in order to clinch that victory. Although you might have to wait a few years, at least, to get a hold of Congressman Myers again, because now that he's pled guilty, he's facing the prospect of up to 60 years in prison, up to 3 years of supervised release, as well as a fine of up to $1.25 million. He is scheduled to be sentenced on September the 27th, so a few months from now. If you'd like to read more about Congressman Myers' case, as well as about the security of the glorious election system out in Philadelphia, I'll throw all the links to everything we discussed down into the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that if you haven't already, take a quick moment to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And now I wanted to quickly mention again that last Friday we published a phenomenal interview over on Epoch TV between myself and Dr. Michael Yeadon, who is a former vice president at Pfizer, as well as Pfizer's former chief scientific officer for their allergy and respiratory research department. And we discussed a broad range of topics, including how, in his professional opinion, there is no safe way to combat an ongoing pandemic with a vaccine, since the necessary safety trials take longer than the length of the actual pandemic. And then secondly, how if we continue down the path that we've been going down, it will actually lead to total global control by a small group of elites. Now, again, that interview, in my opinion, was fantastic, but due to the censorship regime here on YouTube, I frankly do not even feel comfortable showing you the trailer for that episode. And so if you'd like to check it out for yourself in its entirety, it's about a full hour long. I'll throw the link. It'll be down there right at the very top of the description box. I hope you click on it. I hope you check it out. And I also hope that you subscribe to Epoch TV because, frankly, it allows all the journalism that we do here at the Epoch Times to be possible. Again, that link will be right there at the very top of the description box. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.